And it's totally understandable. I mean, I do blame them for it to a certain extent, but at the same time, I grew up and was taught in a very, 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 very extremely religious school, and so I know firsthand all the propaganda and all the ridiculous things that these people are being told, and so you have to take it with a grain of salt. You have to understand, all right, these people aren't trying to be rude, they're just, confused, they're misinformed, and then you have to usually try and set them straight, at which point they'll tell you, no, you don't even know, and then just kind of storm off and be frustrated. But hey, that's not all of them. The vast majority of religious people I have no problem with. I don't care, as long as they're not using their religious influence to impact foreign policy or vote for things that infringe on my rights. Believe in whatever the hell you want. I don't care if you pray to a friggin' Nordstrom bag. It doesn't matter to me. All right. Next. Jeff Goodman. Okay, so you're... Oh, no, you already got one, sir. Got to try and be fair. Evan111. St. Louis Blues playoffs. I'm not a huge Blues fan or hockey fan anymore, really. When I was younger, I used to watch it a lot. But pretty much now, I'll fully admit I'm a bandwagon fan that when the Blues start doing really well, I'll start watching hockey. And it's really funny to me, people who get mad at bandwagon fans, because to me, it's like, all right, would you prefer that I'm no fan? Would you prefer that even when my local hockey team performs extraordinarily well, that I just ignore it and just out of, I guess, respect for your fandom, just don't watch the games? It's like, no, screw you. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. If I want to, I'll be a bandwagon fan of, the Philadelphia Flyers starting tomorrow, and you can't say anything about it. But as far as the Blues in the playoffs, Elliott is standing on his head doing great, and I watched the series of them against the Sharks, which is really, really refreshing because the last really serious playoff game, or playoff series rather, with the Blues I can remember watching was like 10 or 12 years ago, and it was the Blues versus the Sharks in the first round, and the Blues had a great season that year, and everybody was anticipating them to do really well, and they lost to the Sharks, and so that was really disheartening, and so it was good to see a little bit of comeuppance for those San Jose douchebags, so that's how I feel. All right, I'm Calvin. Stupidity versus ignorance. You really can't fault someone for being stupid. There are people out there who are simply dumb. They simply lack the capacity to understand logical thought processes and are completely dominated by emotion. There are people like that out there who really can't fathom logical arguments. And it sounds almost insulting, but it's true. And those people, you really can't blame them for it to an extent because they're legitimately stupid. But there are so many people out there, so many people who are intelligent, or at least reasonably intelligent human beings who use logic and reason in every other tenet of their lives, and yet when it comes to something faith-based, they'll be ignorant on purpose just so they can maintain that delusion. So I do not fault anyone for being stupid, because there are stupid people out there, then they can't help it. But as far as being ignorant, yes, I do fault people for being ignorant, because that shows an intellectual laziness, that you would rather sit back in a warm bath of your own delusions and be happy than actually get out and face the world of reality. Next, Ray Lilja. What's the deal with airplane food? I don't ever get this. I've never eaten like a big meal on an airplane, but all the food I've had on an airplane, like, it's not that bad. It was never just revolting and disgusting in every way. Like, from what I can remember, like the last few times I've had airplane food, it was like a ham sandwich and some peanuts and like a little bag of popcorn or something. So it's like, hell, even if I don't like the sandwich because it feels old and soggy or something, I can still eat popcorn. There's no way anybody can mess up popcorn unless they're handing out like 400 bags of popcorn that are just burnt to a crisp, and I'm like, what the hell? I'm not supposed to eat this. This is burnt popcorn. And then they go, screw you, and then flip me off, because that would be a ridiculous thing to happen on an airplane, but that hasn't happened before. And I enjoy peanuts. I enjoy the honey roasted peanuts, and when I see those little bags that offer honey roasted, I'm always a little bit more excited, because it's gotten to the point now, I really only fly Southwest just because it's cheaper, but now you don't even get peanuts sometimes. You don't even get honey roasted peanuts. If you do get peanuts, you get just standard, regular, not even salted peanuts, which is like a slap in the face to the potential for peanuts, because to me, that's like killing a pig, taking that pig's life, and instead of converting his body into delicious, wonderful meats and pork steaks and bacon, that's like, instead you waste his body by throwing it on a George Foreman grill and cooking all the deliciousness straight off of it. That's how I feel. It's almost like a spit in the face to the peanut. All right. The Last Dodo 7. religious schools and their effects on people who go and went to them. Honestly, if you guys want me to talk about some of the experiences I had at my extraordinary religious schools, because as I've said before, I went to religious schools up until college, and I was presented with a lot of straight-up indoctrination and falsehood throughout the vast majority of my younger education years. So I could do a whole commentary on that, and so I don't really want to get I don't want to delve too deeply into that now, since it'll surely monopolize the rest of the video. So thank you for the question, though, Last Dodo. If people want me to talk about that, I'll be more than happy to. Instapickle. What game got you into gaming? I don't really know what game got me into gaming because I've always liked video games, but the first game that I really played that made me just love the game was Call of Duty 4, and I don't know why. It was just so fun, and it was something that every guy in my grade talked about, and everybody had an account on Xbox, and everybody during lunch could talk about it with everyone, and it was just a fun time. Everybody enjoyed it. Nobody took it that seriously, and you just had a fun time. And I didn't do the YouTube thing at the time. I didn't even know that there was a community. I guess at that time there wasn't a community, and so it was just no worry about KD, no worry about stats, which I know I don't give a shit about those now anyway. But there was a brief period where I did care about those. Which, honestly is kind of embarrassing in retrospect, since I just can't imagine anything that has less of an impact on my day-to-day life. Yeah. But as far as, the first game that I ever loved, love it, that would be Pokemon Red. I can still remember my mom got me and my brother Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue, respectively, and my grandma got me a yellow Game Boy Color and my brother some less awesome Game Boy Color, and I just sat down, and from that moment, when I first picked my first Pokemon, and I was sitting there next to my brother and my friend Alex at the time, who would play Pokemon with us every day after school when he would come to my house and hang out, I was just like, oh my god, this is so much fun, this is awesome, because it was the first game, really, where instead of just being like Mario Party or something on the N64, it was the first game where you could really feel involved and have a lot of impact on how your team of Pokemon developed, and it had a lot more potential for creativity. As a kid, who doesn't like naming their Charizard asshole or douchebag or little bitch or something like that? Because kids like funny words, I still like those words. I name my rival asshat or douche clown almost every time. All right. Or actually, I would name him Gary too, just so I could get really into the feeling of it. Harry Child, what was your worst/funniest drinking experience? Well, those are distinctly different stories, but my worst was probably one of the first times I drank ever. Actually, no, it was the first time I drank ever. It was back in high school, and I was hanging out with a few friends, and of the friends I was hanging out with, only like half of them had drank before, and so we all got together at a buddy's house when his parents were out of town, and we started drinking, and the older brother of one of the friends was the one who bought us all the alcohol, and he was already like 22 years old at the time, and so he should have been there like explaining to us like, hey, this is Bacardi 151, you don't want to be chugging this and just getting obliterated drunk way too fast. But apparently he didn't think that was necessary, and so he let all of us just get trashed just so fast. Like, I still remember that feeling of like getting way too wasted way too fast, and then just feeling just like complete garbage, and then just standing up and being like, wow, this is alcohol? Jesus, this is terrible. I don't want nothing to do with this. And so then I went out into the lawn, passed out, and woke up at like 4 a.m. the next morning, just soaking wet because I had laid in the grass and there was dew all over me, and so I was just so wet and cold, and when I went to try and open the back door to get back in, all of my friends were passed out drunk, and I assume that his brother was asleep upstairs or some shit, and so I had to just sleep outside, That was fun. That was an enjoyable way to be hungover as shit at 4 in the morning, soaking wet with dew, not able to get back into a basement because all your friends are passed out drunk. So that was not a fun drinking experience, and it did not keep me from drinking more, let me tell you. Anyway,